Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 119. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on another episode where we discuss new movies. We talk about new ones that come out in streaming or in theaters. We break them down, give you some pros and cons, favorite moments. I'll even recommend whether you should check out in theaters or wait for streaming or maybe even skip it. And at the end of the podcast, we then talk about, after one viewing, is this film timeless? Does it stand the test of time to be rewatched various different times in the future? It sounds ridiculous, but it's still a lot of fun to do. Before we talk about this week's episode, I did want to call out that the Timeless Movie Podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Give us a follow, subscribe, leave some comments. I would love to interact with you guys about previous movies that I've already reviewed, as well as some upcoming ones for 2025. Speaking of previous episodes, episode 118 is available on all platforms. I ended up talking about A24's newest movie, Opus. This one stars Io Debris and John Malkovich. It is a very trippy and kind of a weird story about a pop star, cults. It's just an interesting ride that it tries to take you on, and it's A24, so you already know it's going to be a little bit outside the box. Give it a listen, leave some comments, let me know if you agree or disagree with my thoughts on the episode. Again, I would love to talk to you guys about it, and whether, again, maybe we agree or disagree on it being timeless. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode in which we are talking about Warner Brothers' new film, The Alto Knights. This film stars Robert De Niro, and it's basically a crime drama dealing with conflicts between various different crime bosses. First reason I wanted to check this movie out was Robert De Niro himself. I mean, the man is a legend. He has come out in some of the best movies in movie history, so I definitely wanted to check it out for him. Second reason was because Robert De Niro plays two characters in the same movie. We have another one, guys. We already had The Monkey, which Theo James ended up playing twins. Then you had Mickey 17, where Robert Pattinson played two different Mickeys. And now we have The Alto Knights, where Robert De Niro plays two different characters. They don't look alike. One Robert De Niro character actually has prosthetics, so it kind of looks a little bit different. And the other character, Frank Costello, just looks like Robert De Niro. But I'm always intrigued that we're seeing more of these films where an actor wants to play two different characters, so I'm all in. And then the third reason is because of the genre of it. It's a crime drama. It deals with gangsters and mafia and bosses. I'm always intrigued in those types of stories because there's usually a lot of tension, either between rivals or even within a family itself. So those are the three reasons why I want to check out The Alto Knights. I think this is a perfect segue so that we can now jump into the non-spoiler section of the podcast. All right, I got to check out The Alto Knights this past weekend, and I gotta say, after leaving the theaters, I had an okay to good time watching this movie. It wasn't terrible. I didn't hate it. I made it all the way through. It's about 2 hours and 8 minutes, I believe. And I was never bored, but I was never hooked either. And that's where I think is like really the biggest thing that I can give you guys in regards to what I thought about this movie is that I just did not get hooked to the characters. I didn't get hooked to the story. And that sucks because I really wanted to. It's a recipe for things that I enjoy. I called it out before. It's a genre that interests me with crime, with different types of conflicts. It has an actor that is legendary. I just wish that I was able to connect to it more or connect to the characters, but I just didn't really feel it. There are positives though. Robert De Niro is one of them. Both characters he plays are very different, very distinct. They even come out in the same scenes. But again, apart from the performances, I was really just hoping that this would just grab me the entire time, and I couldn't feel that energy. All right, let me jump into a little bit of a synopsis to kind of give you an idea about what this movie is about in The Alto Knights. The film is actually based on true events. It actually follows two characters, Frank Costello and Vito Genovese, and both of these characters are played by Robert De Niro. Frank and Vito grew up together, became criminal bosses together, and they just had a great relationship up until a point when Vito ended up getting caught by selling drugs. He got sent away, and now he came back hoping that, okay, well, now that I'm back, I want to start my life again. I'm hoping that Frank can help me out. And Vito never felt like he got that appreciation once he got back. And so, because there's like a divide now there's two conflicting ideologies. You have Frank, who has been running the business, and he has a style that is more about working with politicians, staying out of the limelight, and trying to do as much as he can to help everybody. And then you have the ideology of Vito, who is more aggressive. He's reckless. He wants to bring in more drugs from outside of the US. And so these two ideologies start conflicting, and it gets so bad that at one point, Vito ends up calling a hit for Frank in order to take him out. Now, this hit ends up failing, and Frank survives, but the rest of the film has to deal with the ramifications of the divide between Frank and Vito. So that's kind of where I'll leave it. Hopefully, that's a good enough setup for you guys. Once again, overall, it's an interesting story. I like some of the pieces to it, but overall, it didn't have anything that really caught my attention and just didn't get me to stick with the movie all the way through. Again, I really wanted to feel the conflict. I wanted to feel the tension between Frank and Vito, and I never really felt it. So for me, my personal recommendation is going to be that you can actually skip this movie. If you really love crime drama, if you really enjoy Robert De Niro, and again, you're a big fan and you already watch all their stuff, maybe check it out on streaming. But in my personal opinion, you can skip this movie. All right, that is enough for the non-spoiler thoughts. Let's jump into the spoiler section of the Timeless Movie Podcast so that we can kind of dissect this movie a little bit more, and you can kind of get a little bit more insight as to why I didn't enjoy it as much. So if you haven't seen the movie, jump out now, watch it, and then come back, and that way you can either agree or disagree with my pros and cons. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. First pro that I wanted to call out of the Alto Knights is I really enjoyed the dynamic between two characters, character Vito and his right-hand man, Teddy. Something about them just like having these conversations, it felt very genuine. It felt like two characters that have known each other since they were kids. And, they're really kind of bashing each other sometimes. They're, calling each other names. But at the end of the day, they're still best friends. And that, I just really like that dynamic. There's times where like Teddy would be talking to Vito and he would start the conversation kind of on opposite ends. And then by the end of the conversation, Teddy was always finishing with being on Vito's side. Just showing like, hey, I support you. Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I'm with you all the way. And so I really enjoyed how they were able to set that up between Vito and Teddy. Again, that was one of the highlights for me throughout Alto Knights. Second pro that I wanted to call out was I really enjoyed the scenes whenever they were in courtrooms or in a specific conference being accused of something. And by they, I mean the criminal bosses in this film. Something about those scenes just really worked for me. I thought they were really cool. You had scenes where different crime bosses are pleading the fifth. That way they don't get incriminated. Then you have a specific scene where you have a conference where they're asking Frank questions. He's trying to navigate so that he doesn't lose his political connections with all the people that he's worked with in the past. And so there's a lot of awesome stuff that kind of gets set up in these courtroom situations. Now, granted, a lot of these courtroom scenes are exaggerated. Obviously, there's no way that they would allow some people to kind of just get up and start, screaming and telling their story and people laughing. But it was still fun to see throughout the movie. And so those are the parts that I really enjoyed, was just anything in regards to a committee setting up a conference to ask certain crime bosses questions, or seeing Frank trying to wiggle his way out of getting in trouble. And then the last pro I wanted to call out was I really enjoyed the effects and the prosthetics that they put on Robert De Niro, because anytime Vito and Frank were in the same scene, and it happened a couple of times, it never looked out of place. It looked really good. Again, I think it benefited that Robert De Niro wasn't just playing a copy of himself. He at least had a character that looked very different. So I think it was a little bit easier to have those scenes together, because you wouldn't really be focusing on, okay, like something looks off about one of the Robert De Niros and not the other. But in this case, the prosthetics really added to the difference between Vito and Frank. And the both characters also had very different types of personalities. So, wanted to at least quickly call that out. Okay, moving on to cons about the Alto Knights. I mentioned it at the beginning, and again, sounding like a broken record, but the film just didn't really hook me at the beginning in the first two acts. And I feel like some of the reason for that is because of the fact that the way the film was edited just felt very weird because it was cut in a certain way where like it would just make sometimes it would be okay, I'm going to highlight all these license plates of all the crime bosses. That makes sense. It's trying to in a very short amount of time let you know where are these crime bosses from. But then there's also other scenes where it just kind of cuts into various scenes of people having a conversation, and it just makes it very hard to follow. And I don't really like that. It doesn't add any other tension to it. So I don't really like when there's a lot of different cuts in order to keep your engagement on the screen. I actually appreciate more when the camera just stays on two or three characters. It might slowly pan to the left or to the right, but it's capturing every single detail of what these characters are doing or whatever they're talking about in their conversation. So the constant cutting was just unnecessary for me. And again, it made it very hard in the first and second act to really get engaged with what was going on in the story. Speaking of cutting, I also wanted to say that I feel like there was a lot of stuff that was filled into the movie, and I feel like we could have cut a part of this section of this movie, either a little bit of the beginning or even the second act. I feel like that just a lot of that could have been removed just to kind of clearly show, okay, Frank got shot at. Okay, who was it? Okay, it was Vito. Okay, now let's just jump into what we're gonna do after this. Instead, we kind of jump around, go to different years, show the setup of both characters, show Vito getting married. There was just a lot of things that I feel was unneeded. It's just, I didn't need to see all these different types of details. I really just wanted to see, just get to the point, show the conflict, how are these situations going to get resolved, and then end the movie. And so, I don't know, maybe that's also partly why I didn't enjoy the experience that much, is because there was just a lot of things that they were throwing out there, and I feel like it wasn't enough for me to actually like, oh yeah, oh that they mentioned that in the first act or this in the second act, and now it's paying off in the third act. It just never really worked. So those are my two cons. Enough with the negative though. Let's go back into the positive, in which we talk about some of our favorite performances, favorite moments, as well as a favorite shot of the movie. I'll start off with favorite performance. I wanted to call out Robert De Niro as my favorite performance, but who am I going to choose? Is it Frank? Is it Vito? It's going to be Vito for me. Vito just had the more eccentric type of personality. He was just a lot more talkative. Frank seemed like a little bit more reserved. He would talk when needed, but Vito would just kind of go around talking random stuff. You know, sometimes he'd just be gibberish, but it was just so funny to see him walk around and do that. He would even flirt at times with his now ex-wife in certain parts of the movie, but it was just cool to see him perform in that way. So again, shout out to Robert De Niro for playing two different characters, and I'm going to give it for him playing Vito as my favorite performance. All right, moving on to favorite scene of the movie. Once again, bringing it back, Vito is in my favorite scene. There's a specific part where he's in a car with Vincent Gigante, who is like a younger man, a part of his group, and he's also with his right-hand man, Teddy, and they're all driving to a little farm place in upstate New York, and they're just having a conversation. It's just a dumb conversation where I think Vincent ends up saying, "Oh yeah, Pilmar," or whatever a sign said, and he goes like, "Yeah, there's something about Mormons," and then Vito goes, "Mormons? Mormons are in Utah, man. Why would that be here in upstate New York?" And then Vincent starts telling him a little bit of a history lesson, and then they just have like a conversation that you would have with your friends about something so off topic, but it was just so funny that the way that they were interacting in the car, and then eventually started bad mouthing Vincent for saying all this dumb stuff and not believing anything that he was saying about the Mormons. So that whole scene just felt very realistic, but I really enjoyed it. And then last but not least, favorite shot of the movie is probably a point where Frank and Vito end up meeting in order to have a conversation about getting Vito back into the business. And they both walk into a specific candy store. And as they walk in, the camera slows down. You see both of the Robert De Niro characters walking very slowly, and it just looked really cool. And I feel like that could represent the entire movie of Alto Knights really well. It's just showing both Vito and Frank walking before they have their very conflicting conversation. All right, everybody. Those are all of my thoughts in regards to the Alto Knights. If you have seen the movie, drop a comment down below. Let me know if you agree or disagree with some of the comments or the pros that I may have called out. That way we can have a nice conversation about this movie. Okay, now we have got into the last segment in which we are deciding, is the Alto Knights timeless? Can I see myself rewatching this movie and picking up new details that I didn't catch the first time? You guys have already heard the cons, all the things that I've said. I even said that you could probably skip this movie. So, will I come around for this one? No, I won't. This this movie is not timeless for me, unfortunately. Again, it has the elements, it has the puzzle pieces to really be something that I thought I would really enjoy. But at the end of the day, I just did not enjoy my time watching The Alto Knights. Again, it's not a terrible movie. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, this is like one of the worst movies I've seen this year. No, no, no. It's a good movie. It's an okay movie, but it's not one that I would even recommend to friends and family members to check out. So that's always an unfortunate feeling after watching a movie. But like I always say, guys, doesn't matter what I think. That's just my opinion. What about you guys? I want to hear what you have to say about the Alto Knights. Have you gone to check it out? Are you going to go watch it? Let me know down below. That way we can interact and we can either agree or disagree on some of these thoughts. All right, guys, thank you so much for those that stayed all the way through to listen to my full thoughts on the Alto Knights. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 119 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode as we cover a new movie that comes out in theaters or streaming. We'll break it down, give you some pros and cons, and then decide if it's timeless. All right, guys, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later.